Hey Kenton, it's Michelle Labus, and I just want to give a quick overview of the state of the city that Lynn had tonight. It was over at the Performing Arts Center, and they did an excellent job. It is really a time for her to be able to say thank you to all her staff, all her volunteers, different boards, and different organizations that all kind of come together and make Kenton a community. And so it's really nice to see kind of all the assets that are centered around Kenton, and so that's kind of the main part of it. They also went over construction, and right now they're sitting at like $30 million have been poured back into our community through grant monies and different things. I mean, we are not even hardly scratching the surface of what we're responsible to pay back in some of these projects. So when you look at I mean, if you guys remember back, they showed pictures of all the roads being torn up, and it's like, oh, that seems like forever ago, but really it wasn't that long ago. We just get used to things once they're finished really quickly. And so when you look at the amount of money we've been able to receive for each of these kind of projects that have been going on, it's really astounding. And depending on when the money came, is how the construction gets done. So you say, oh, well, you shouldn't have started with Main Street first, but that was kind of the beginning of this whole process, is that we said, hey, the EPA says we have to fix these water lines. We got grant money for it, which then led to grant money to do the sidewalks, which then allowed grant money to come in to start doing the North Detroit Street. And then, and they kind of just build on each other, but they all have timelines. So you had to do this project before that project. Now, if you had 20/20 hindsight and you could just say, okay, all this work is going to be done, how can we best do it? Well, then of course you would do it in a different manner. But we don't have that choice. You take the money when it comes, because otherwise we have to pay for it. So you're either going to take the grant money and kind of say, okay, they say, hey, you have to have bricks. Well, then you take the bricks, because if you don't take the bricks, now you're going to be paying $1 million in whatever decision you decide to go with. And so there's some of that give and take with grant money. And of course, we don't want to strap citizens with any more than we have to, and so you make the money go as far as it possibly can go, so we get the most benefit at the least amount of cost possible. So kudos to Lynn and Cindy. They've done a great job of doing that. They also are really good at focusing on infrastructure, right? So, hey, Lark Lane needs paved. It's kind of in a bad shape. Well, we also have to do infrastructure there. So let's not pave it. Let's go back and tie in the water lines and do some of these things so that we're not going to have problems down the road and tear up the work that we just did. And so that's what they do. They go and they get the infrastructure done, and now when it comes in and they lay the final road down, it's going to be good for years to come. I know Patterson did get some extra paving, but it's just a top coat because they want to eventually get storm drains down through. It's a storm drainage issue, and so you kind of hold off. Yes, it's kind of a pain to deal with, but it's something worth waiting for. So they kind of talked about that. During the questions and answers, Lynn was able to answer questions about like the bump outs. Why do the sidewalks come out so far? And it's really to slow people down. We don't want people just cruising through town. Kind of the big arcs on there, I think, is to help cars get around. It brings your pedestrians closer, out into the sight lines of the roadway, and so cars can see them better. You have maybe those gentle slopes that allow, the visibility in the cars and all those things. I know back in the old days, you would come up and you'd have those really sharp corners, and I was paranoid, always paranoid, that there was going to be people in those window stanchions and that I wasn't going to see them. And so it's like I would check and check and check, because it is a dangerous thing, and it's the last thing that you want to happen is to be making a turn and not see somebody, which is what was happening, especially at that Liberty intersection. And so safety, I know people poo-poo it a little bit, but safety has been the driving force for a lot of these projects. The roundabout is another piece of that safety, right? So if you say, okay, this intersection here is very dangerous, we've had some really bad accidents there, move the trucks all over to Detroit Street, get them up out of town. Now you have reduced traffic in this area, you know, people, and that's a very busy intersection with the parking lot and the courthouse, which of course the courthouse is now locked up, so I don't know how many people, you know, actually will be going there just for leisure. But you know, definitely the city building is there, and you know, you have people walking around the square. So creating safe intersections is part of what those bump outs are for. And they look a little funny right now because the roads aren't completed, but you know, time will tell, and we'll get used to them. I mean, I'm already used to them. The the left-hand turn lane. So she did get to address this. So it's really, GPS is a problem. So Google and, you know, Apple Maps or whatever, you don't just send them a map, right? They use traffic data and they use different things to determine the best routes for people. And so part of it is kind of a waiting game. So you put up there, you say, we do not want trucks turning left, that left-hand lane, right? Because, you know, it's still a dangerous intersection. So you make that no left turn. You force the GPS to move the trucks up, you know, and around the block, and it's longer. So they go, no, this is too long. The shortest route is, I think she said, going to Carroll and around. And so you're really playing with that GPS. Now, will that left turn lane be there forever? We don't know. Once the roundabout goes in and that now becomes the shortest route, it may become a mute point and you can get rid of that left turn lane. But right now, they are picking people up that are turning left, so be careful up there. But it's an effort to shift traffic in this time of construction turmoil. So that's kind of the thing. Our signal lights are not going to be in until the roundabout. I think she said that those Detroit Street lights are part of that roundabout with ODOT. So that we're going to be waiting on that. She also said something else was I don't know if it was the light poles or the other signals, that the signal poles, they're just being delayed, and they're not coming in, and so that's causing a delay. I mean, construction of this magnitude is nothing but delays, so when you think it's going to happen, it doesn't really happen. So you just have to be able to be patient. The back-end parking, again, it's a touchy subject, but it is based on safety. You don't want car doors open into traffic. You don't want to be getting kids out of the car into the lane of traffic. And so doing the back-end parking, which I know back-end parking or, you know, pull-in parking, but it's to keep people safe and to keep the drivers safe and the you know, pedestrians safe. So there is a method to all of it, you know, and it's just getting used to it. They are working on there's a sidewalk project out to Walmart. So again, it's safety. How many times at night you're watching people walk along the roadside out there to Walmart and they got their little scooters or, you know, what have you. And so I think she said from Broadway that, you know, they're going to do a sidewalk all the way through downtown there. It's going to be on the north side of Walmart. So Walmart side is going to have a sidewalk. It's also going to have a sidewalk over by Dollar General. So that whole pathway is going to have sidewalk because they want people to get off the roads. And again, I think that project is, it's $1 million. So we're going to pay $300,000 of that project, and the grant money is $1 million. Just for these sidewalks, just to get people off the roads and into a safer place. And so, again, it's kind of a small amount for the amount of benefit, and it's going to look really nice. So that's a project that is coming. They also are looking at Jacob Parrott. Of course, we have a lot of people that walk up and down that road, but it is difficult to find funding for that. I think they would also have to do storm sewers there. You know, and it's kind of a strange road there with the median, and it doesn't have any curbs, so it's kind of a big project. But they're going to continue to look for grant money for that so that we can get that in a good situation also. So questions, somebody had brought up Morningside Drive being really dark, and I know Burl was, they have already talked about it, and it's a monthly fee to AEP to get lights to go down there, and so it's just a matter of kind of working through that process and getting it done, but it is something that the city knows about and is working on. Another question was brought up was with the new school, you know, trying to get out on 53, and like Silver Street is very difficult, and so what is the plan for that, which is outside of the city, it's not city, but what Burl explained was that you have to have the school in place to do the traffic study. So everything kind of had to be done, and of course we're going to have Van Crest there now, and so you're definitely going to need to have signalization out there, and so the schools have to be in place. We have to show the traffic study and the need, and then you can get the signalization that's needed in those areas. And so it's kind of just, again, it's just a process that, you know, we have to be patient to work through. What else? Some wins. So Wharton Park had some playground equipment. They had the National Day Out they talked about, and longest day of play was a big success, and so that's kind of fun. I did ask what projects might be finished this year. I mean, I think there's some road pavings that's going to be finished, like the Lark Lane, and they're doing some road sealings. And then they're hoping Main Street. So Main Street project's coming up. They've got a manhole right there by the courthouse that needs to be fixed because the asphalt doesn't stick to it, and so that whole area needs to be fixed. And they have to shut down Main Street for I don't know if it's the water lines that's going down. Anyways, they have to shut down Main Street, and they're hoping that when they shut that down for this other project, that they can come in. They have to do the concrete on the corners where the gravel is and lay down the final coat of asphalt for those roads. And so if you can kind of coordinate that so it's shut down one time, kind of get it done and over with, and then they can open it back up, because it's, as we all know, it's a big hassle. So they're trying to coordinate that to make that happen. So they're hoping to get that Main Street all the way finished this year. Also, another big win is Ohio Health, the hospital. I know, I think hospitals all around have kind of gone down. You know, they don't always have the reputation that they've had in the past. I know Hardin Memorial has had quite a reputation, although, you know, when they're not busy, you get kind of one-on-one care out there. And so I've heard a lot of good things about, people who kind of have to stay at the hospital overnight, that they're very well taken care of. I mean, we've used the emergency room and it's been fine. So kind of the directive from this federal administration is that we need hospitals in rural areas, but you're not going to get your doctors, right? And so I remember hearing, it's been a while ago now, but they want to implement these robotic machines into these rural communities, and your doctor may be a specialist out of New York, right? But they're trained to do this robotic surgery, and as long as you are equipped in your local hospital, you can have that specialist be there to help operate on you. And I know that sounds kind of scary, but at the same time, you know, if you have a trauma and you have to go to Hardin Memorial, you know, because it's the closest hospital, it would be better to be there with a robotic specialist. You know, of course you have your on-site team, but then you have the specialist be able to go in and do the repair or whatever the surgery is needed, you get that quality of care even in a rural area. And so I think it's going to be really interesting. So it's an $8 million surgery center that they're bringing to Ohio Health here, and they also are building a new MRI. I think they're building a whole building for the MRI thing, but I could be wrong. But they're spending a lot of money to keep our hospital. I mean, imagine if they said, you know what, we don't even like rural medicine, we're just going to abandon the hospital, and then we have nothing. And so, I think it gives an opportunity with this robotic, and I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, I'm just saying it's what connecting the pieces here, that if we have that here in Kenton, it really could open up some opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise. And so, kind of interesting. We have to take the wins in rural America where we get them, and continue to push for continued support of our small towns, because we are the backbone of America, and we're going to continue to fight for it. So anyways, I am thankful to Lynn and Cindy and all the city crews that are working diligently, even if it's not fun, to get these infrastructure projects together. We are going to be in a much better place to have industry and to have growth happen now that this infrastructure projects are more than halfway done, I would say.